What a great talk from Vivio and from Naked Love. It's just a testament to collectively the sex tech, sexual health and technology companies that we are shifting and shaping and really causing social reform. Actually, we're blowing shit up, and also, I brought my notes because I'm the only person, if you ever attended my first talk, to break the technology in this tech conference. Once again, thank you for sTARTUp, for having us, giving us a platform to talk about the three-letter word sex. This is a serious conversation, but I will be talking about cock rings. So, let's start from the beginning. It's lovely to be with you today. My name is Dominnique Karetsos. I am the CEO of Healthy Pleasure Group. For those of you who don't know who we are and what we do, we represent brands that seek to build or buy innovation in the sexual health and technology industry. And, throughout my consumer-centric career, I have continued to be curious, furious, and fascinated by the industry that you can relate to as sex tech, but we consider and define as sexual health and technology. That means it encompasses femtech, menopause and aging, sexual wellness and pleasure, contraception and access to abortion, menstruation and hormonal health care, and much more. So essentially, it's anything that solves your problems between the belly button and the knees. And despite it now being a billion-dollar industry, in the future, just around the corner, it's a trillion-dollar industry. But sexual health and pleasure has been and remains excluded as a health priority across all levels of society. It's been almost a decade since my fight started to end the war of what I call or consider the pleasure famine. And although great strides have been made during this time, when it comes to social mobility within the industry, those age-old feelings of shame, secrecy, embarrassment, exclusion, they still largely resonate with consumers worldwide today. And you heard all about it previously. That's why I've joined you here today to talk to you about the priorities of sexual health and how it dictates our social mobility and how brands need to get into bed. They need to get intimate with their consumers to truly understand how to solve our problems. Let's define social mobility. By definition, it means the movement of individuals, groups, families, through a system of social hierarchy or stratification. In modern societies, social mobility is typically measured in the careers that we follow, the pay scales that we sit in, the socioeconomic level of one's occupation. Essentially, social mobility is about access. Access to education, access to money, access to opportunity, to healthcare. And you either take it by force, or it's a slow grind until it becomes a commonplace expectation. So, what has social mobility got to do with sexual health and technology? I would argue everything. Social mobility touches every single industry, but for consumer brands, specifically brands in our space that are wanting to enter into our market, in order to carve out a valuable long-term position in the world and find what we refer to as a competitive advantage, you need to prioritize your consumer. What do your consumers need? What do they want? How has society historically made you feel? What options already exist, if any? What do people know? Most importantly, what don't they know? Because how people look to achieve through life, that's changing. And we see that as a prevalent indicator in our industry. We are, after all, the IP branch of the oldest industry in the world. Sex. So when a couple want to reignite their intimacy or their desire after a very long-term relationship, I mean more than a year, both have to have two things: social permission and the confidence to ask for what they want in the bedroom, because that transcends into the boardroom. Let me say that again. What you want and what you want and what you want and what I want in the bedroom, that confidence will bleed and dictate into the rest of our life. And that makes social mobility the truest economic and social motor that powers real business success. So let's look at the significance outside of sexual health for a moment and come together about something we all know about. And don't worry, before I ask the room to put up your hands at how many people have played with a cock ring or pleasure products, let's move to a technology that you can all relate to. I did consider changing my talk to talk about prompt engineering and ChatGPT, but I figured saying cock ring would already spark enough of a debate. So let's move to a technology I know most of us in the audience can relate to. How many of you own or have used a sat-nav when driving or walking here? Well, you all know your way around, do you? Okay, great. Because GPS as a technology, it's been up and running as early as the 1960s. And although adopted by the military through the 1980s, it actually wasn't until 2000 that the GPS navigation, it ended. And it became, it became open to the public. We can thank Bill Clinton for that, because he ended the military scrambling of satellite signals and made it possible for the development and use of a sat-nav in our cars. So for those of you who can remember, including myself, prior to the internet, or when it was in its infancy stages, your options were limited. Find and use a physical map, A to Z. Who knows how to remember to use a map? Find or use a computer with the internet and painstakingly print off your chosen route well in advance. And if you were lucky that you could afford a top-of-the-range car already installed with very rudimentary or unreliable navigation technology. But consumers, they were happy with these options. Providing your maps and routes were up to date, you took 0 wrong turns, consumers settled with the options they were provided with. They didn't know any different. But it would be the Dutch consumer brand TomTom who would change everything for us. Founded in 1991, it wouldn't be until 2004 that portable navigation became a reality for millions of drivers around the world. The first TomTom sat-nav became one of the fastest-selling consumer technology devices in history, and it made a brand name synonymous with travel or navigation for years to come. Yes, it was considered a luxury portable item. Yes, it was expensive to buy with a very high energy use. Sure, good thing it didn't happen now. But that innovation in less than 20 years has evolved into a daily necessity, an expectation, if you will. It's become so ubiquitous with how we live our lives day to day. Easy, reliable, digital navigation. And man, is it quick. And it's now available to all of us in the hands of our palm of our hands, sorry. Travel has been revolutionized. Small businesses the world over are able to deliver efficiently and cost-effectively. Car users, runners, ambulances, canoers, they can now accurately find where they want to go. The fastest route, the safest route, they can go anywhere in the world, but furthermore, they expect to do so. TomTom, a consumer brand, afforded better social mobility for millions. Right. Now I'm going to take you all back into sexual health and technology. Don't worry, I won't ask you to put your hands up again. Aww. Let's talk about the health gap. The disparities and the differences in quality of health and healthcare across racial, ethnic, and socioeconomic groups. They continue to widen. And prioritizing our sexual health and pleasure, it still remains at the bottom of the list. I am very honored to have been working with the UN Women. And from government policy and education to private investment and the lack of innovative solutions, society has continuously been told that sexual health either comes down to your family planning aisle down the pharmacy, or porn being the only Bible of instructions for sex education. For too long, consumers, they didn't know any different. And there are also other factors that have to come into play when we are talking or thinking about enabling a better social mobility. Your lifestyle choices, sexual orientation, lack of access to education, and personal socioeconomic and environmental factors. They are all key. And this is where consumer brands in our industry, they get to play a part in leveling the playing field. Much like the humble sat-nav, true innovation has the ability to change the course and the quality of our lives in sexual health and technology space. It was the first condom, contraceptive pill, tampon. They paved the way for women and men to build a different kind of future for themselves, offering choice and options. But how far have we really come since those firsts? What brands are making life easier, more equal, and offering innovative solutions that simultaneously raise the bar and close that gap? Well, let's start with a brand that by definition has one of the best competitive advantages because it is truly mobile. And I'm wearing it. I'm wearing Crave. This is jewelry, but it's also a travel vibrator. Yes, get her one. Get yourselves one, ladies. Another brand that made a name for itself just last year is Day. They're known for creating the CBD tampon. They are used by tens of thousands of brands across women in the UK alone. But they really set a new bar. They changed legislation to make a mainstream everyday CBD tampon your at-home diagnostic tool to better and improve being informed about our vaginal and fertility health. And they did it faster and more cost-effectively than the NHS, all by sending our menstrual blood to the lab. It's available at a price point that no doubt will lower economies of scale, right? As more iterations come to market, that can only be a good thing. But take into consideration how this can impact and free up time for state health systems. Imagine the control and the freedom, the confidence that consumers feel when they have control over their own vaginal and fertility health, and the knock-on effect this has on raising the bar of women's health and education for years to come. Before you know it, tampons won't just be a menstrual product. They will be a tool in which regularly and accurately you can check your vaginal and fertility health. This will become an expectation for everyone. At Healthy Pleasure Group, we have a buy or build IP philosophy for brands working with us. We only work with brands that are committed to and invest in science and social-backed innovation, whether it's a consumer or a medical-based concept, because this is what we call honest innovation, not iteration. We've advised over 1,000 brands coming through our ecosystem. For example, through hundreds of hours of medical and consumer insights, we've identified that 89% of adolescent boys who suffer from phimosis, PHI when you Google it, which is a dry foreskin and scrotum disorder, they do not seek clinical help, and there's only steroids or surgery as a potential solution for them. That's 9 out of 10 adolescent boys. Of course, sitting in our IP vault lies the very solution, a male genital intimate care called Repair and Replenish Oil for everyday use, for preventative use, and it promotes positive body behavior and routine. So imagine a world where boys grow up pain-free and shame-free. Another great example is Adam. Adam is invented by Contraline, and it's on track to be the future of male contraception. It's safe, it's relatively fast, it's 10 minutes, it's an insertion of a hydrogel done by your GP. It's reliable, and it's a male contraceptive. And while many of you might be shaking your head no, for whatever reason, imagine if 50% of the population could take as much responsibility for their fertility as the other 50% currently do. I want you to take a moment, because what if men said yes? Yes to choice, yes to controlling when you want to have children, yes to carrying the burden of responsibility for reproduction, and so much more. Gentlemen, give me a yes. Thank you. Because with each successful yes, there is a colossal impact on our social and economic motors. And this leads us ever nearer to closing the health gap, the gender pay gap, and it delivers social mobility through access and opportunity. Now imagine that economic world. So how do you, as a brand or an innovator, participate in this future? How do you grab a hold of your idea and find both a real life or a solution to real world problems, but also deliver economic and business success? Some of these solutions are to the very questions you asked for the previous fantastic speakers, Vibio and Naked Love. And I want to leave you with 3. Know your consumer, because we as consumers are a rich tapestry. Our sexuality is built up from religion, policy, education, and power. And there are as many sexualities as there are humans in this room. Don't quote me, that was Emily Nagoski, the neuroscientist. But become obsessed with your consumer. Meet them where they are, not where you think they are, but where they actually are. Ask them how they feel. Ask them what they think, what they like, what they know, very importantly, what they don't know. You wouldn't believe the amount of brands we've spoken to that have gone from ideation to product onto the shelf and never bothered to invest in their now, next, and future consumer and what they think. Invest in education. As a brand, you are or will quickly become an expert on the issues that your product or offering is tackling or solving. However, your consumer is not. Sometimes the most powerful information that you can garner from your consumers is what they don't know. Do they even know what they're suffering from? Phimosis, vaginismus. Forget the script. You know, this is the best part of my job. This is the part where our brand teams and our innovation teams and our research teams, they come together and we inform founders on how to solve those problems that you heard earlier. We get to inform them how they should talk to their consumers, where they should meet their consumers, where they should sell to their consumers. how their consumer is going to move through the world and engage with their product and solution. And I never miss that meeting. Woo! Thank you. On cue. So, back to your consumers. Do they know there are other people going through the same experience, and do they know there are solutions available to them? Because when you know the level of your education of your consumer and what that level of education is when you come to the table, you can build the language and the lexicon. And again, you heard quite a bit about that today. It's changing the narrative. But consumers dictate the narrative. You can build that, and you can become the trusted and credible source, because education is knowledge, knowledge is power, and power is action. And that's the way to raise everyone up through the education. To raise everyone up through education is the only way to both raise the bar and close the health gap. Whatever's going on, it sounds like a lot of fun. Lastly, but not least, create honest innovation. Be honest. Is your product really going to change people's lives? Are you jumping on a bandwagon or following a trend? Are you innovating or are you iterating? Because if it's going to impact lives, not only will it deliver impact and social mobility, but it's going to deliver that competitive advantage you've created, and it will also impact and deliver income. So I'm going to wrap up and leave you with my previous question. How do you, as a brand or an innovator, participate in the future? What is that going to look like for you? And how are you going to impact lives as well as the bottom line? Thank you.
Thank you very much. You can send in your questions insight.votamo.eu or the QR code there. Until you do, my question would be, we were talking about innovation a lot of the time. Would you say that the innovation has sped up recently and there's more innovative products now, or has it sort of been the same throughout, but just people don't talk about sex tech that much, and so it's gone under the radar, so to speak?
Well, it's a great question. I don't think we can say there's no innovation, because we're a $1 trillion industry. So that alone dictates that there has been a mass amount of innovation. And again, it sits across such a broad section of categories. But within those categories, we are now at the point where there is less concerted, unique innovation and more iteration. Again, everyone wants to, get in while they can.
Yeah, well, that's I guess that's more of a tech issue anyway. Once an innovation comes out, everybody wants to copy and make their own version of that stuff.
Sure. So. And of course, if you exclude the consumer, then once again you find yourself you're making something that you think your consumer wants but doesn't necessarily need.
Yeah, but thank you very much. That's no questions have been asked, but that's all we have time for. So thank you very much.
I've got 40 seconds. There we go.
Okay. Actually, let's ask. I've asked the other two people who have talked about sex tech as well. How much difficult is it to communicate these topics to people, mainly because of the stigma around it?
It's actually not that difficult if you bother to invest and talk to your consumers. So invest in research and insights, and they'll tell you.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.